We have reached the penultimate episode in Season 3 of House of the Dragon, a slot historically reserved for the major events in Thrones, such as Ned Stark's death, the Red Wedding, and Daenerys burning King's Landing, to name just a few. House of the Dragon's 2 previous attempts have been very hit or miss. Aegon's coronation was blighted by arguably the worst scene in the series so far, but Season 2 more than delivered with the claimant of Vermithor and Silverwing. So what of last night's episode? Well, to me it featured both the very best and the worst the show has to offer. We have reached the stage in the A Song of Ice and Fire adaptation where everyone owns a jetpack, the writers continue their weird obsession with the Targaryen mother-son fetish, valuable screen time is gifted to characters most people just don't give a damn about, nor even remember the name of, and we have long strayed from the path written in Fire and Blood. However, there is a Dragon Royal Rumble. Aegon might just be the best character right now. Haelana finally gets some well overdue minutes, and I'll tip my hat to them. They got me with Ormond's piece on the board. So expectations were extremely high going into episode 7. Not because the show is on a glorious run, but rather the opposite. Since Rhaenyra took the throne, the show has felt very slow, and honestly, it's like they're dragging it out until the finale, when we finally reach the Battle of Tumbleton. But at this stage, many just want the talking to stop, and the dragons to dance. And we for sure got that. But at the same time, there are multiple scenes I just want to burn with fire. Obviously, spoilers ahead not only for this episode, but potential spoilers next week, and I will include some details from Fire and Blood that might not have happened yet. The Dragon in Winter, which sounds like a really cool name for a racehorse, or even better, a title for a new Dunk and Egg story. Honestly, George, just give us that novella set at Winterfell. But in the meantime, we finally witness firsthand Helena's mysterious dragon dreams, before she is rudely awoken by her big sister. Rhaenyra tries her own take on the good cop, bad cop routine, but Haelana has very little control over her gift. Rhaenyra acts like Haelana can just dream up whatever she wants, whether that's news of Alicent Hightower or the progress of the Winterwolves, but it just doesn't work like that. It's not Google. You can't turn it on and off. Haelana only receives mere glimpses. She doesn't fully understand what she sees. Sometimes her dreams are related to current events. Sometimes they tease a potential future, or act as nothing more than a little Easter egg from the books. For much of her time on the show, Haelana has felt more of a plot device rather than a character. To many, she's just the weird Targaryen girl with access to George R. Martin's notes. But finally, after all this time, she is given the minutes she deserves, away from her mother or another character's shadow. We finally witness Haelana with her dragon Dreamfyre, in what looks like could be a teaser for the infamous storming of the Dragon Pit. And I've got a feeling they might just change Helena's fate, as her dying to protect the dragons kind of feels appropriate, as she has a deeper understanding of the beasts, and wishes no harm to fall upon them. But I think they'll stick with the original version from the books, or at least have their own take on it. I'm sure it'll be an accident. It's possible this very courtyard will be the location. That scene from one of the very first trailers finally happens. Haelana gives birth to a son, who should already exist, and Maelor is taken from her, indicating he is doomed from birth. Damn those butterflies. And finally, Helena's happy ending of feeding chickens with her children, including the one that was killed at the hands of Blood and Cheese, is spoiled by the inevitable return of winter and death itself. The coming of the White Walkers has long been foreshadowed. And perhaps Haelana now knows that in the end, all the bloodshed caused in the Targaryen Civil War only hastens the realm's downfall. It's just a shame the War for the Dawn only lasts one night and the Night King is defeated in the worst way imaginable. Still bitter, folks, still bitter. But I know many aren't happy with the changes to Dreamfyre's design. She now has horns that resemble a crown, and she no longer looks like a Drogon reskin. And I'm very happy the show mixed up the dragon designs. I didn't want a dozen dragons that were just recolors of Drogon. But for Dreamfyre, it made sense because she is the prime candidate to be the mother of Dany's dragons. But on the show, they have given that honour to Syrax, or at least that's what it looks like. But it makes no sense, as not only Dreamfyre is heavily teased in the books, Syrax comes from the horse design, whereas Drogon, Viserion and Rhaegal are based on the dinosaur. Or the dinosaur design is based on their design from Game of Thrones, and that's what Dreamfyre looked like in the first season. She was literally just a Drogon reskin. I get the show is completely different, and it's not a secret they want as many connections between Rhaenyra and Daenerys as possible, don't mind Dreamfyre's design, but I just wish her colours were a bit more vibrant. I like my fantasy with a little more colour and a little less grey. Harrenhal. Harrenhal was just unbearable. Alicent takes her personal helicopter to the haunted castle, arriving in record time. She'll likely smash that on her way back home. Aemond has been sidelined for the majority of the season, but honestly, I would rather he stay away than have to witness this. But in one of those weird Harrenhal hallucinations, Alicent comes to Aemond's room. It's clear what's going to happen. It's uncomfortable, it's weird, it's unnecessary. Aemond makes out with his mother and then starts shagging her, or at least that's in his head because it's actually Alice. Not sure if it's the castle playing games or Alice committing a crime, but why? Why? I know this fandom is all for uncle and niece or even auntie and nephew romances, but this is just wrong. It's worse than the Cersei and Jaime stuff. Tell me, who on the writers' team has mummy issues? 3 times, folks, 3 times. Moving on, the real Alicent arrives seconds later. She's made the trip to the most desirable haunted location in the Riverlands with Rhaenyra's Kingsguard as a fake companion. Aemond kills him straight away, not to protect his own skin because he suspected a rat, but rather to keep the clutch of dragon eggs a secret. A plan I can't remember if he revealed to his mother. I think he didn't. Lots of uncomfortable scenes follow. It feels like Aemond and Alice are an old married couple rather than newlyweds in the honeymoon stage. Alice doesn't trust Alicent, likely threatened by her. I guess Aemond wants a threesome or wants 2 wives, a mother wife? I honestly don't know, it's just a mess. We know the guy's got mummy issues and Harrenhal does weird stuff to you, but Alice saying all Targaryen boys want the same thing? Whatever. But anyways, Alicent tricks Aemond into drinking some spiced wine with a little poison in it before fleeing back to the ever-safe King's Road with no guard, only a knife. Yeah, good luck. I'm sure she will be fine and make it back to King's Landing in no time, just before next week's finale. Obviously, Alice will save Aemond, and Rhaenyra will punish Alicent's failure, but as I said, this is just awful. If they wanted to do this, they should have had Alicent here weeks ago, and maybe, just maybe, it could have worked. But please, let's have no more Targaryen mother-son stuff, okay? If it happens 4 times, someone needs an intervention. But I guess we'll move on to something more positive. If you asked me in 2022 who the best character on the show was, chances are Aegon would be very low down on the list. But in 2026, that is not the case. He is probably the best character right now. And I feel the writers are stupid for making him the worst person alive in Season 1. Someone who enjoyed the suffering of women and children. Perhaps it was all part of their plan just to make Rhaenyra the biggest babyface of all time. Aegon continues Larys's plan to travel to Essos, even with Tywin Lannister still begging him to reconsider a trip to Castle Rock. However, plans change as an army loyal to Rhaenyra has come looking for the former Master of Coin. So back to Rook's Rest they go. Aegon is done with running. He will not die this way. So he will make a stand and fight as king. What I really appreciate was how Aegon gave Larys and Tywin the choice to stand with him or flee. Larys obviously is out for himself. He admits he'd be no good in the fight, so he departs. But he does promise to make Aegon's last stand immortalised in song and story. Perhaps a little trip to Harrenhal is next. Do not have any more foot fetishes. I'm telling you, don't do it. No. But yeah, that's his family's castle, so I can see that happening. But maybe he just comes back to Aegon after he hears of his king's victory. Tywin, however, will stay with his king and die for him. True to his word, Aegon stands tall, declares himself Aegon, second of his name. His enemies cower in fear, not at the sight of the broken king and his Lannister lackey, but at the newly resurrected Sunfire, who has somehow come back. Either he was dead and came back, or was just in hibernation. Maybe he awoken from a deep slumber by Aegon's words. Maybe there was some magic at play. Chances are they'll never explain it. But in one of the best moments on this show, Aegon commands his boy to burn them all. Sunfire looks more like Two-Face rather than the most beautiful dragon in the realm, but he's back and Aegon is ready to cause some chaos in the season finale. Now, we get the big payoff from Jace's death. Rhaena can't help herself. She gets involved in the search for the missing Granny Godzilla. Vhagar has been spotted in the Riverlands. There are clear signs she's been there. They should honestly just launch her giant dragon turd into Tumbleton and root Ormond out that way. Anyways, Daemon flies off to the Eyrie in the Vale to learn his cave-dwelling daughter and her wild dragon Sheepstealer have been spotted in the Riverlands. Guys, I know your eyes rolled just as hard as mine when Jane Arryn mentioned the girl living in the mountains with the sheep and the nettles. Obviously, Daemon hightails it out of there, as he fears what Rhaenyra will do if she finds Rhaena first. Baela and Adam report back to their queen, but before we get that, we get a rather cringe tease for a Velaryon love triangle between Baela, Adam and Alan. Whatever, they're clearly just looking for plot points now, most of which we just don't care for. Some of these plot points are far too late. Honestly, there's only 9 episodes left. We shouldn't be doing this. But the small council scene was rather amusing, but in the end, these characters mean very little. The early Game of Thrones small council will never be surpassed. But anyways, everyone is flying towards Fairmarket in the Riverlands. Seriously, how fast can these dragons fly? How fast can these characters travel from one location to another? Gendry really messed up the principles of distance in this universe. But at this stage, Westeros feels so tiny, and it's getting worse. It kind of ruins the world building. But we do get our Dragon Royal Rumble, with Seasmoke, Syrax, and Caraxes all teaming up against Sheepstealer. Sheepstealer puts up a fight, he almost takes Syrax out. Seasmoke isn't much use, but Caraxes is a trained fighter, and there's no way the Wild Dragon can win this one. It's kind of just one big CGI slopfest, but the show has done wonders in making us care for these dragons, sometimes more than the actual characters. Sheepstealer isn't dead, he's badly wounded, but he will likely meet up with Rhaena in the final season, and I'm kind of looking forward to him and Caraxes one more time. Do they kiss and make up, or do they settle the score once and for all? Whoever pins who is the winner, but let's not have any killing. For now, Rhaena is back in King's Landing. Rhaenyra hasn't called for her head yet. She was actually quite shocked that Daemon thought she would, but this is not all forgiven. I suppose Rhaena will be first in line for some punishment whenever Rhaenyra has a bad day, and oh boy, those are coming. Baela looks like she's forgiven her sister, but as we all know, Rhaena has taken up the role of Nettles. But I loved how Daemon is finally starting to act like a father, even offering to fight Vhagar alongside Rhaena. But it's clear his marriage with Rhaenyra is all but over. Mysaria has been stirring it all season, and now she's taken his girl. Not gonna lie, I wish the scene lasted a few seconds longer, but can we please never, ever have another scene like the one involving Mysaria and Sylvie? People are here for the dragons and the Targaryens, not that. But we'll wrap this up with honestly a scene that surprised me. Ormond's piece on the board. I've read the book, I know what happens. Ulf turns coat. But I didn't expect it to play it like this. But I suppose a man's gonna get his beer somehow. We were all focused on the nonsense involving Corlys. We kind of forgot about the underappreciated dragon rider. Turns out Ulf's been speaking of Ormond for some time, and as predicted, news of his embarrassment at the hands of Daemon has reached Tumbleton. Ormond promises Ulf Driftmark and the title Lord of the Tides, so that's that. Rhaenyra has lost Ulf and Silverwing, but let's not forget there is still much more to come from Tumbleton. What about Hugh? And obviously Ormond sent Alan a little message concerning his dad, but the board is set, all eyes are on the market town, and every day Rhaenyra's power diminishes. The Winter Wolves missed their flight aboard the Westerosi Concorde, but they'll get there next week. And I am sure whatever happens, how far they stray away from Fire and Blood, it will leave us talking for the next 2 years. But guys, let me know your thoughts on episode 7. Didn't really feel like a penultimate episode. This wasn't an event moment, but I loved all the stuff with Aegon. The dragon stuff had me on the edge of my seat, and Daemon is the man. But I never want to see Aemond and Alicent together again. I like Daeron, but I fear he may go out having done next to nothing. I guess they splashed all the cash in the first 2 and saved the rest for Tumbleton. And honestly, having Tumbleton as the finale has definitely tied the writer's hands. Whereas you could probably argue they should have started it this week. But let's just hope the finale delivers. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon!